Welcome, Sim Developer. This lesson reviews the three ways you can set up navigation in SimsUShare. You can use the walk-around maker, you can set the navigation arrows manually, and you can use the location jumper plugin. The arrow cluster navigation lets you set up to 10 different paths for each location. Typically you won't use all 10, but you can decide which arrow is appropriate visually for where you want it to go from that location. You can also use the arrows in the cluster to jump to any location, so even a location that represents the same one you're on, just in a different condition, like we did for going from the incipient and free burn into knockdown for the Sim Developer 2 class. Now the walk-around maker is really a shortcut for setting the navigation arrows when you want to loop through a series of locations. Instead of having to set them manually, in the walk-around maker you can just say, I want to loop this set of locations, and they can be anything here, and you typically want to do this in a clockwise, right to left meaning clockwise. If you make a mistake and put them in the wrong order, you use the arrow here to bring that to the right order, and then you say make loop. And what that does, I'm going to go over to location A, set navigation, that automatically sets the left arrow to the start of your loop and going clockwise, and the right arrow going counterclockwise for each of the locations you put in the walk-around maker. Now, when we set the navigation for a specific location, like the approach, let's go over there right now. We decided we didn't want it to be part of the 360 loop. And once we left the approach location, we didn't want to allow the user to return. So we set the arrow manually. Set navigation, and there's our manual arrow. We clicked on the arrow and then set where we wanted it to go. While we usually think to go to a location, like we did approach, and then choose set navigation, we can actually set all the navigation without leaving this screen. We can tell SimsUShare just to change the location for which we're setting the navigation. So if I wanted to now go to the A location, instead of hitting done and changing to A, I can use this little down arrow to say set my navigation for A. And now I'm setting navigation for A. I can set my buttons. If I wanted to do this for any other location, I can similarly just go up here and click on which location I want. This makes it much easier to set the navigation for all the locations once, rather than having to continually shuttle back to the edit screen, change the location, and then hit set navigation. The location jumper plugin also can be used to jump from one location to another, but it has more flexibility. Let's take a look. This example here, I have two locations, and I have this button over here that's activate the alarm, and I've shown the location jumper here. When I click on this arrow, I go to a different location, but it's with the same graphic. But now there's actually an alarm sound going on. So the location jumper took me to a new location. Now typically I wouldn't want to actually show this arrow. So for example, when I go to that location, engine room, and I go to the location jumper, I can say the opacity should be nothing. And now it could be like a panel. I could have a picture of a panel where I click on to activate the alarm. And that really, if I look at that, if I click on the location jumper, it's really taking me to, from where I'm currently at engine room, it's taking me to engine room 2, which is the place where I actually have the alarm active. So when I run this over here, I click on my alarm, now it's jumping me there. So you can see the location jumper is easy to make transparent. You can also change the different, if I click on it, it actually is still there. If you don't remember where it is, you can use the selection rotator to actually go and find it. You'll see location jumper, and actually you'll have to kind of remember where it is. So when I go there, you can see here now I can change the shape. Let me show the opacity. I can change the shape. Remember also location jumper can move on timeout, so I could have it sequenced. I don't have to actually click on it. But if I do want to move on timeout, I have to make sure to set move on timeout to be yes. By default, move on click is set. The only thing that the arrow cluster can do that the location jumper can't is use a keystroke to activate. So with the location jumper, you either have to click on it or you have to have it set for timeout. Another thing about the location jumper is, if you notice, when you set the time, it's going to be whenever you come into the location. So if I say move on timeout and I set 5 seconds, it's 5 seconds from the time that I get into this location. It's not 5 seconds from the beginning of the scenario. So that, I think, is fairly obvious in what you would like the location jumper to do with timeout, but it is worth mentioning. That gives you a sense of the way that you can use the navigation controls to jump from location to location.